No one's done more to expose the deep state than me. I'm not going to allow you to be misled.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. I want this audience to be informed. I want us to be ahead of the curve, and I'm very proud of what we've gotten right over the last couple of months. For instance, when Virginia Roberts committed suicide, the chief Epstein witness, I said, man, something's big going to pop off with Epstein. This case is going to be blown wide open. And man, we were right about it. People were saying, why are you covering this so closely? Well, because if you know where to look, if you know how to read the news cycle, you can see what's happening next. And I'm telling you, something just crossed my feed that gave me chills. It has some dark and wide-ranging implications for what we're going to be covering in the next couple of months. And I've reached out, and let me tell you what, man, we're get ready for some bombshells. Dan Bongino's most chilling post yet, saying that he was shaken to the core and that Dan Bongino is literally scared about what they've just uncovered at the FBI as it pertains to deep state corruption. This post is going thermonuclear viral. It's one of the most viral things anybody in the administration's ever posted. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino shocked to his core over FBI's recent corruption discoveries. I'll never be the same, says Dan Bongino. Let's read. During my tenure here as Deputy Director of the FBI, I've repeatedly relayed to you the things that are happening that might not be immediately visible, but they are happening. The Director and I are committed to stamping out public corruption and the political weaponization of both law enforcement and intelligence operations. It is a priority for us. But what I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into the aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I have just learned. I'll never be the same after learning what I've just learned. This is Dan Bongino speaking. Obviously, not somebody who's overly emotional, limp-wristed, weepy. It is a fascinating thing for him to say this right here. What else does he say? We're going to conduct these righteous and proper investigations by the book and in accordance with the law. We are going to get the answers we all deserve. And with any investigation, I cannot predict where it will land, but I can promise you an honest and dignified effort at the truth. Not my truth or your truth, the truth. God bless America and all those who defend her. Respectfully, Dan. This has been seen by 3 million people. It's got 20,000 reposts. It's only been up for like 2 hours. Right now, 94,000 likes. Goodness gracious. Do what must be done, says Alex Jones. Mike Benz, thank you for fighting on the inside. I think your stand earlier this month made a difference in the admin. It looks like galvanizing action all the way towards millions of people feeling heard. That's exactly right. One thing I know about you, Dan, says John Rich, is that you're going to take a beating over something. You damn well be sure it's worth it. If you're going to take a beating over something, we know you'll bring it home in the end. I got chills reading this. This is the analysis we've been waiting to hear. Okay, so what is Dan Bongino looking at? Patriots are with you, Dan. What could Dan Bongino be looking at? Well, I have 2 leads on this. And this, by the way, is something that is some privileged information. But I'll tell you what, man, what's going on right now, it's privileged and it's public, but what's going on right now is an enormous amount of classified and unclassified information has been sent over to the Department of Justice by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Now, the classified stuff is obviously going to need to be investigated inside of a SCIF. Dan Bongino works inside of a SCIF every single day. The investigations for the Justice Department are done through the FBI. The FBI is its own intel agency. You have to understand how it works. The DOJ is the prosecutor. That's where all the lawyers are. The FBI are the people who commit to the investigation. And so everything concerning the public corruption, which is what Dan Bongino is talking about here, right? Stamping out public corruption and political weaponization of law enforcement and intelligence operations. There's your clue. Dan Bongino is looking into Barack Obama. Dan Bongino is looking into Barack Hussein Obama and James Comey and what happened at the FBI. And he just got a mother load of information from Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence. And he's blown away at what he's seen and what they've uncovered internally in the building with the launch of hoaxes against President Trump and the weaponization of these federal law enforcement agencies. You can tell right here in Dan's tweet what this means. We cannot run a republic like this. So this is obviously Dan Bongino saying that our nation can't operate when a president is able to weaponize the military against the next president, right? Against his political enemy. I'll never be the same after learning what I've just learned. That is the investigation that is active and ongoing in a strike force in the DOJ. I assume, given the classified nature of these records, that Dan Bongino is part of that strike force, as Dan Bongino, the deputy director, works inside of a classified environment day and night, and is the one actually doing the investigations. Everyone will tell you it's the deputy directors who have all the power. There are figureheads who are the director of the FBI, the attorney general, but it's really their deputies, their directors that do the actual grunt work. I think that Dan Bongino's uncovered something about Barack Obama. I think that Dan Bongino's uncovered something about Hillary Clinton. That's what I believe, because that's the ongoing investigation that's happening right now. Dan Bongino obviously has also potentially gotten some new information about Jeffrey Epstein that may well be also this. I'm not telling you that I have a definitive bead on this. I'm just telling you that you can read the tea leaves, let's just say, on this kind of stuff. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. We do know that Ghislaine Maxwell is giving up Epstein evidence, that the evidence that is gathered by the DOJ would go to the FBI. So it could also potentially be the Epstein evidence. I would guess that it's more about Barack Obama and the weaponization of Russiagate. Now, this is also something that Dan Bongino happens to be an expert on, along with Kash Patel. It's also something that we know is an ongoing investigation happening right now, this second at the FBI. I'll never be the same. Dan Bongino claims the corruption in the U.S. government is so vast that he will never be the same after watching the intelligence agencies being weaponized. Now, again, this could be Epstein. I think that Epstein had ties to intelligence agencies, and perhaps this is Dan Bongino saying that he's seeing the true Epstein saga play out right now with Ghislaine Maxwell being granted immunity and allegedly giving up 100 people. She's been asked about 100 clients of Jeffrey Epstein, according to the reports. Things are happening that might not be immediately visible, but things are happening, says Dan Bongino. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned, says Bongino. We cannot run a republic like this. Bongino with an important update. He says he's shocked down to his core. Trump and his team found criminality, and they're trying to bring it to justice. We're going to get answers. We'll see. We'll see. Dan Bongino has regularly sounded off about deep state corruption, whether it's Epstein or whether it is James Comey and what he and Barack Obama did in order to launch the Russiagate investigation. I have these two clips for you of Dan Bongino on his show and on Tim Pool's show talking about Bill Clinton and little girls on the plane. Okay. I go on a plane and Bill Clinton gets on a plane with this guy, and it's Epstein. And there are these young girls. He says there are these girls that are obviously not of age who are on the plane. They're young. These are little girls. I'm going to play you both these clips. Just to show you that Dan Bongino is passionate about both of these topics. And these may well be the two topics. These are the two topics that he's talking about, right? Yeah, it's got to be. Okay, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Lock in. It's going to be a fascinating next couple of months. I just know it. Prepare. Things are going to change. It's going to be big. All right. Here's Bongino explaining. See ya.
We got to get rid of people like this. Jim Comey, who signed on, obviously, with the woke agenda because he's weak. This is one of the most disgusting human beings on planet Earth. A man who has done more damage to the United States and its institutions than I'd argue anyone else alive right now. There are people who've done as much, John Brennan, but you can't possibly do more. This man decimated the credibility of the FBI. He is the worst FBI director in the history of the FBI. And the problem with Jim Comey is he is a straight up sociopath. He is a man who has zero remorse for what he did. There is a damning report that just came out, the Durham report, suggesting they never had any evidence to start this case with at all. And Jim Comey, the FBI director, who personally oversaw the case against Trump to spy on him and his presidency. You'd think this guy would sliver into the cave he came from, to never be seen from again, and his family would tell people he died in a car accident so they don't have to acknowledge they know him. Not this guy. This a-hole loser wrote another book and is out doing the media tour. So on the media tour, he was asked, hey, listen, now that the Durham report came out, anything embarrassing here? Are you going to apologize to America? Nope, not at all. This is a sociopath in action. Watch this loser.
As for the Durham report, 300 pages, 4 years investigating the investigators. One of the things that did come out of it was that procedures, regular FBI procedures, were ignored, that steps were missed along the way in this investigation. In fact, Director Wray said when the report came out, yeah, we acknowledged that a couple of years ago, and we've changed all that. Those changes are already in place. Do you acknowledge perhaps that some mistakes were made along the way?
Oh, definitely. And they were found 4 years ago by the Inspector General. So there's nothing new in this new document.
What were some of those mistakes from your point of view?
Oh, that the FBI didn't communicate clearly the status of certain sources. They didn't double check certain information before putting it in a court application for a foreign intelligence wiretap, and a bunch of others.
And so do you believe now, as some of these politicians call for defunding of the FBI, that has been corrected and that now the procedures are in place to avoid those kind of mistakes in the future?
I think so. But in complex investigations, there's always going to be mistakes. It doesn't mean the FBI is incompetent, honest, and independent.
So, Director, with some distance now from your time there with that investigation and everything that came into that 2016 election, are there things that you wish you had done differently?
Oh, plenty. I mean, plenty of small things. In the main, I think the FBI did it in the right way during a very difficult time in 2016.
Is this guy smoking the glass? Is this guy on crack? Is he smoking crack? I get a call, I don't know, about 4 years ago. It's from, let's say, a friend. Prior line of work thing, right? Guy says, listen. And this guy who calls me is an unimpeachable source. This guy's not like some ham and egg or tomato can guy throwing out some theory about a UFO he saw 72 years ago, whatever. This is like a legit no-nonsense guy. Guy you trust with your, wife, kid, and car, right? He says, I got sent on a temporary assignment once. And on that assignment, I got sent out on the WCD detail, William Clinton detail. And I knew this guy well. And he says, Dan, I got to share this with someone. He said, I go on a plane and Bill, Clinton gets on the plane with this guy. And it turns out later the guy's Epstein. Now, this guy I'm talking to, this source, he don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is. He's just getting on the plane doing the thing, the whole, protection gig, right? He says, I get on the plane and there are these girls who are obviously not of age who are on this plane. They're clearly young. These are not women. These are girls. And he says, I see Clinton disappear into the back he goes, I don't know what happened. I'm not saying what happened because all I know is he disappeared and these girls were back there or whatever. And he said they land at the next stop, wherever it was. And he goes up to the boss on the detail and he says, I ain't getting back on this plane. Because he's a temp. He's not used to whatever Clinton was up to with the whole shenanigans thing. And this guy's clear as the driven snowman. He don't want to mess around with this. He says, whatever just happened back there, I don't want any piece of it. They sent him home. They sent that guy home. And he's never tempted to that detail again. Now, remember, all those Blackberries on that detail. Here's where the story gets super weird. The guy tells me, months or a couple weeks later, when you lose property in the Secret Service, an email goes out. It'll say hey, I lost his phone. And it gets logged into NCIC or whatever it is. And everybody knows. So basically, if you find this guy's gun, God forbid, or his phone, it's now effectively stolen property, right? All of a sudden, all the Blackberries on that detail for the agents start showing up oh, this guy lost his Blackberry. Holy shit. Wow, that's so crazy. How'd that happen? I'm like, no. He says, yes. He says it was the craziest thing. Like, oh, look, Agent Joey Bag of Donuts, missing BlackBerry. This is around the whole time, like the Clinton thing's going on. So fast forward this story, right? He tells me that about a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the short story, but not who they are. Says, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person, who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right? Swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right?